my name is Prakash Sadagopan. I'm very, very honored to be here, and thanks a lot for each and every one of you to be here today. It's a very interesting day. We have a very good mix of presentations as well as labs that we are doing today. The topic of my slide is succeeding in a multi-cloud world, and I think Michael kind of did a very nice job of setting it up. Before I start on, there is an interesting statistic that I want us to kind of look at. This was presented by Eric Schmidt. I don't know how many of you know of Eric Schmidt. He is the current chairman of Alphabet, the parent company of Google. And in a few years back, about 2010, he said, as human beings, we have generated about 5,000 petabytes of data ever since human beings became civilized to about 2010. All right? But then he said, by 2010 to 2015, we are generating about 5,000 petabytes of data every 2 days. Whatever we did in 5,000 years, we are doing it in 2 days. But then it doesn't stop there, ladies and gentlemen. We are now moving into a world where 5,000 petabytes of data can be generated in 1 day in a single app. And why, is there a proof point for that? And there is an interesting story that I want to present. How many of you here have heard of this science project called 1 square kilometer array? Any show of hands? Fortunately, unfortunately not. But it's good for me, then I can explain. Right? 1 square kilometer array is one of the world's largest radio telescope observatory project that is funded by public across 30 countries. And it's, think of a 1 square kilometer full of radio telescopes that will be positioned in Australia and South Africa. You know what are they going to be doing? They're going to be peering into the universe. They're going to be looking at how did the universe start? What is the origin of the cosmos? What is dark matter? What is dark energy? Can we prove Einstein's theory of relativity right or wrong? All of this is going to be collected by huge arrays of telescopes, and this is the new world of software-defined telescopes. And this software-defined telescopes cannot work without, about 10 years back, because we did not have those powers. Point number 2, once it is done, the square kilometer array will generate about 10 times the traffic of global internet traffic today. And it would require about 100 million PCs equivalent of exaflops to be running this. So this is the 1 SKA as it's called. But what is important is how is it connected to the topic of discussion today? The 1 square kilometer array will generate, when it is up and running in a few years' time, in full swing, they will generate about 100,000 petabytes of data per day. Where is 5,000? Where is 100,000? But what is very important is all of this data peering into the cosmos, looking at 13 billion light years away, signals and radio signals that got emitted. For you to capture and analyze this, correlate this, you need hexaflops of computing power. And these hexaflops computing power is not going to be available in one location. There are going to be scientists spread across the whole world who are going to be correlating this data, doing all kinds of science projects and experiments and data analysis on that. And that is going to be possible only because this is going to be possible by compute available in different locations, is also because we can store data in multiple locations. And that is the connection for our discussion today. Think of, ladies and gentlemen, think of one app, not many apps, one app that is going to be generating 100,000 petabytes of data per day, and that is going to reside across multiple locations. That is what we call as multi-cloud. So in the enterprise world, we are very familiar with the concept of a multi-cloud because we have, on an average, registered on an average about 200 applications, and these 200 applications kind of move everywhere. But this is only the applications we have counted. There are so many applications that resides in each one of your laptops, which is not registered. And Michael had a very interesting chart. Let me see if anybody remembers. He said the budget split between business and IT for Indonesia. How much does business own? 27%. Do you remember who had the highest on the business side? It was USA. Correct me if I'm wrong, Michael. USA had about 62% of the budget owned by business. And that is reality, whether we like it or not. Whether we like it or not, shadow IT has always existed. But in the current world where programming has become very easy, in the current world where there are so many tool sets available, in the current world where a business user need not go to IT to have his application up and running in production, what it is devised is, it has just given the freedom to the business, but it has also created some level of complexities. That's what we will talk about today. But very, very important, and kind of Michael alluded to this also today, in our multi-cloud journey, there are 3 pivots that we have to look at. And before the 3 pivots that we look at, the whole thing, the today's world is centered around one critical aspect, which is applications. From time immemorial, from IT when it started, applications have been the center, but applications have become even more important, even more critical to business. But digital transformation, when we talk digital transformation, it's all around centered around applications. And applications themselves have transformed technologically in the past. But in the last few years, especially the last 5 years, the levers that have hit applications have been fundamentally very different. Also because of the fact that the people who are developing applications, who own applications, also have shifted. It's not just IT anymore. And with that said, now if you look at the 3 important items which have impacted applications, this is not new. All of you probably know it. DevOps has been a significant critical theme that has been critical for our applications transformation. What is DevOps? Simply put, DevOps is nothing but development and operations coming together, which is also part of a larger concept called shift left, where operations shifted left so that they can be part of development in a methodology called agile methodology, and in a concept called lean and mean operations, correct? And now there is this whole concept of everything continuous. Continuous improvement testing, continuous improvement release management, continuous improvement operations. So the whole world is moving into a full agile methodology. But the best part about DevOps is not just the ownership of IT anymore, which is why I was kind of alluding to, and I was referring back to Michael's presentation. In the US, if 62% of the budget is spent by business, you think business is going to utilize the same rigid principles that IT has of blueprinting, architecture, guidelines, halana, palana, everything? No, right? They're going to go completely open source. They don't care. DevOps has opened the world, but what it is also made impossible for an IT officer, a CIO, is to kind of put guidelines in place, which is why there's this whole concept of shadow IT and Mode 2 has become so prevalent. And if you look at fulfillment methodologies of these applications, it's not just DevOps, right? They are now deployed on mobile. Mobile first is a huge strategy for a lot of the developing community. And when you look at fulfillment, long gone are the days when a business had to develop an application, had to go wait in the priority list of IT to have it enabled in their data center. Now it's a credit card purchase. You go to AWS or Amazon or Azure or Google Cloud or Oracle Cloud, So Cloud, A Cloud, B Cloud, C Cloud. It's just a credit card that is necessary to have this application on your cloud. Whether we like it or not, all this is still centered around applications, correct? But it does not mean, like Michael was pointing to, just because now I've moved to DevOps, I have it available on mobile, I have it now fulfilled through cloud, applications, tell me, ladies and gentlemen, can your applications be less fast? No. Can your applications be less smart? Absolutely no. And can your applications, because it's now using DevOps and it's on your mobile and it is on the cloud, can it be less secure? Completely not. Security is the paramount critical aspect of it. When I've moved into this cloud world, having it faster, safer, smarter becomes even more critical, even more important for business. And business needs to realize that. Now, so in the journey to the cloud, if we look at A statistic, again, this is a slightly more embellished statistic on what IDC had presented. 73% have a hybrid cloud strategy. 73% of a hybrid cloud strategy, and 70% of the CIOs also are saying they will have a cloud-first strategy. Obviously, when the business moves faster, the CIO also has to move faster. Otherwise, they will feel left behind. It's natural business dynamics. And for me, what is very important in this slide, amongst the 4 pie charts, is that 8% of the CIOs basically saying no interest in cloud. That will be a diminishing factor in a couple of years' time. There will be nobody who will say, I'm not interested in cloud. There will be some form of cloud that they will definitely take. It's probably, they're doing it, probably not sure, because they probably don't know what the business has done. Now, that could be the problem in that case. But what is very important for us to understand is 85% of the respondents have said they are interested in and committed to multi-cloud. Now, even when I heard this term first time, I was like, what is the difference between a hybrid cloud and a multi-cloud? Right? Is this one other jargon, one other gimmick that a vendor is trying to create? That's not the truth, right? Hybrid cloud is nothing but I have one public cloud and I have a private cloud, and I'm trying to have applications seamlessly operating between those 2 clouds. But the reality is, I am not going to be in one public cloud. The reality is, I'm not going to be in one private cloud, and we will look at that later. And what happens? Suddenly I have a hybrid of hybrids. It's a mouthful. It's simple to call it multi-cloud. So while 85% are committed to multi-cloud, the centerpiece of all of what we are talking about is all around applications. Applications have been in various forms and shapes. I myself as a programmer started writing program in some, I don't know how many of you know this, called Fox Pro Clipper DBase. Right? That gives my age away too. And I've written some in Pascal and Fortran too. That takes me further. So applications have existed when those languages existed too. And applications have always been in the data center. But what we are now looking at is applications are no longer confined to a single data center. Applications now, compute goes to Amazon or to Azure or to Google or to Oracle or some level of co-location partners. Applications have become omnipresent. They are everywhere, suddenly. But the challenge that we have to look at then is, what has this done to us? We call it the multi-cloud sprawl. Think of a situation. Let's say I have these apps going everywhere. As a security CISO, I will have a headache trying to implement policies that are consistent across these clouds, right? As a CIO, how do I ensure that I deliver my KPIs and my business objectives to business? Because I can't control what is provided as SLAs by AWS. I have no visibility to it, as an example, correct? So what we have as a challenge suddenly is we now live in a world of multi-cloud sprawl. Now, it is inevitable. Multi-cloud is going to happen. Now let's look at some of the challenges that comes with it. In the multi-cloud world, each cloud provider have their own architectures. AWS's architectural footprint is very different from Azure, and that will be very different from Google. The APIs and the way they operate, the operations, the services, application services they provide is all very different. Now, I have to contend with the fact that I have different architectures. As an IT CIO before, at least I could dedicate and say, I will only have Java as programming toolkit. I had an architectural blueprint. I would do enterprise-grade valuation of architecture. Then I would go implement it. Now I can't control it. AWS is very different. Azure is different. Google is different. Oracle is different. Now, on top of that, we also have multiple tool sets. So you have Chef, Puppet, Ansible. And on top of that, you also have container enablements like Mesos and Kubernetes. And different kind of analytics also that comes with, for example, Splunk. I have multiple architectures, I have multiple tool sets, and the best part is multiple owners. This goes back to what Michael was presenting earlier. In Indonesia, we are seeing 27%. 1 year later, trust me, that will probably be doubled already. Michael, correct me if I'm wrong. And next year, probably we can check on that number. Because US was not 62% a couple of years ago. And what has happened is Everybody is making applications. Your business is making applications. And business is making applications and putting it everywhere they want. And that is also creating ownership issues. And as a result of this, for each application, there are basic application services that are needed. Each cloud provider offers a different kind of application service. When I say an application service, an example of an application service, Pafetra was providing a slide earlier on. A web application firewall is an application service. A web application firewall, by default, provided by A cloud provider, will be very different from a B cloud provider, will be different from a C cloud provider. As a CISO, I'm going to be scratching my head and look at what will be my consistent WAF policy if I'm going to have my application sprawling across these multiple clouds, right? And that is going to be important. So you suddenly have a problem of multitude. You know, I don't know how many of you, as a joke side, it just came to my mind. I'm a big fan of the movie Matrix. In the Matrix version 2, Neo goes to the architect, and there is a video wall full of displays of all options that Neo could take. And he makes a statement, the architect makes a statement. The problem plaguing the humankind is one of choice. Right? We're going to have more of it in the multi-cloud world. And when I look at this, all the multi-cloud as it happens, so we are going to have very, very problematic issue, which is the value of cloud just diminished. Why did we go to cloud? We went to cloud because it was easier. Now suddenly by moving to multiple cloud, I suddenly feel the value of cloud is diminished, and not on top of that, I have very basic and inconsistent application services. That is a big problem, right? Now I'm scratching my mind again. I did this to serve a purpose, and to top it up, I have complex fragmented architectures. And it doesn't end with that. There is IoT, there is microservices. It is creating even more problems on new architectures that are enabled. So Pafetra, I know he was speaking in Bahasa, I kind of picked it up. He was talking about billion devices connected in IoT, correct, Pafetra? And that basically means you'd need a different kind of architecture to enable it. Your standard inline architecture will not just be enough. You have to look at different architectures, different deployment methods. What this basically means at the end of all this, as a result of this multi-cloud, is, in summary, we just made it damn difficult again for business. The problem we were trying to solve just became a bigger monster onto itself. Correct? So now the CIO must be laughing, on his seat. I told you so. But then he can't just say told you so. He has to fix the problem too. Right? So now let's look at what is the answer to this. The answer to this is what we call freedom. How can you enable your users and everybody consuming applications to be free to use applications anywhere, but retain a level of consistency? What is very important is consistency. For example, a country has many states. Why do we have constitution of a country? There is a constitution in a country because it needs to bind together. You need to apply some policies. Consistency comes from constitution. Very similarly, when you have multiple clouds, it's got to be very important that there is a framework of playing. The framework cannot be very different. But that needs to come in a manner where, irrespective of where it lives, correct? Whether it is public cloud, private cloud, container cloud, in-premise, doesn't matter. So we've got to be ensuring that I have freedom to have my apps move freely, independently across clouds. And that is the holy grail of this cloud journey. And in F5, we look at enabling this across clouds, across container environments, in the new future of everything IoT, by extending our multi-cloud portfolio. And that is where I would look at some of the examples of how we could do this. So when we look at application services, and as applications reside across public, private, container, cloud interconnect, and also your own on-premise data centers, they still have some on-premise data centers. What is important for us to consider in all of this, when I look at public clouds, I need to deploy faster and in more clouds, correct? My applications, I want cloud bursting. I want to make sure that some apps I move to AWS, some apps I move to Azure, some apps I move to Google Cloud. What is very important from an F5 perspective is we provide cloud formation templates that help you move. The kind of story kind of nicely builds up as we look at the F5 offerings, as we look at the multi-cloud journey and the problems. So one is that. Second is the WAF that we saw, the Magic Quadrant that Pafetra provided before, now we have integrated that into Azure Security Center. So when you go to Azure Security Center, WAF is available as part of Azure, as part of the Azure Security Center. So this is enabling consistent application services when you go to public cloud. So that is one use case. Thank you. Now the second piece, which is very, very important, and this is revolutionary, and I'll pause for a minute here. This is revolutionary. When you have apps sitting in your on-prem data center, and these apps, for example, on an average, there are 200 apps per enterprise, let's say, in Asia Pac. When some of these apps move from your on-prem data center to, let's say, a public cloud or a SaaS provider, it is very important. We are providing some services. For example, it could be load balancing services, it could be WAF services, it could be identity access management services. Let's say those services are provided, the standard catalog of application services. When they move, it is very important for us to provide the same continuity of application services wherever they are. That is bridging. And that bridge is provided by App Connector in a beautiful way. It's an FI product released recently that provides an excellent bridge for apps to move independently across clouds and provide that consistent application service. That's a very, very neat thing that has come up. So that is connected back to, first use case was public clouds. Now, whenever I move into different public clouds, I have my App Connector enables that seamlessly. Now, then the next question you will ask me is, Prakash, how about container environments? What is your answer to container environments? So I just don't do northwest traffic alone. I also have to look at east-west traffic. As applications are deployed and in Mesos, Kubernetes kind of container offerings, we have F5 doing that application services as well across the east-west traffic, point number one. Point number two, we spoke about IoT a great deal before. And whether we like it or not, IoT is going to be creating an event storm. Number of events that is going to hit the data center wherever they are is going to be phenomenally high. For example, let's take the smart grids as an example. In the past, where I come from in India, electricity meter reading was taken once in 2 months. If I put a smart grid in, a smart meter can actually generate usage for every minute, 3 minutes, 5 minutes. So you start doing the mathematics on the number of events that the smart meter will generate. How about one reading per 2 months to one reading every minute? The number of events that are going to be hitting your application. So what we need to look at is have an application delivery controller as an IoT gateway that can provide this transaction seamlessly enabled and fulfilled. Sorry, I move one slide. Yeah. The next piece, so we saw public cloud, we saw the interconnect cloud, we also saw IoT and container environments. We can't take this away. Again, this is going to be a critical piece of most of the large enterprises where people will move from pure non-virtualized on-prem data center to a private cloud environment with having to work with OpenStack. We have OpenStack cloud packages and also having SDN controllers integration irrespective of whether it is from various providers like Cisco, VMware, so on and so forth. So what we are trying to look at is multi-cloud is inevitable. It's going to happen. I need to ensure I provide that level of consistency when that sprawl happens. Whether it is moving to public cloud, combination of multiple public clouds, combination of multiple private clouds, and also sometimes with a co-location partner, like Equinix. So what is important for us to understand in this multi-cloud journey, the reason why we exist is we want faster cloud deployments, which is why the whole shadow IT happened, because they wanted everything faster. But the concept of cloud cannot be at the cost of agility. So point number one, that is very important. The second is we want to be smart, we want to be flexible, we want to have control. One of the challenges typically when in the cloud adoption, probably that 8% who said no, is because they're worried about certain things. One is they will lose control. Two, they're worried about vendor lock-in, right? And three, they're worried about not getting that consistency in the security policy. That's a big problem, especially for governments. How do I ensure when I move to public cloud, how do I ensure that the data is secure and there is no theft of it? So we have to ensure that we provide that flexibility and the control to the enterprise to make that choice. And finally, there will be a theme that you will see later today is providing that effective, consistent security. And we cannot take away the fact that consistency is the name of the game. Just because I'm moving my application out into different clouds, I cannot compromise on consistency. I cannot compromise on security. I cannot compromise on performance and availability. Business today runs on applications. I cannot afford to damage that reputation that I have with applications. So with that, thank you for the opportunity. And at FI, we make apps go faster, safer, smarter, irrespective of the environments they live in. And let's start to embrace the world of multi-cloud because it's here to stay. But let's make it count on how we can make our apps be safe, smart, and secure. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.